Hello, my name is Samuel Zingali, and today I will be presenting you the Fukushima Daiichi Nuclear Disaster. So what is it, and why does it matter? On March 11th, 2011, a 9.0 magnitude earthquake struck off the northeastern coast of Japan. This triggered an enormous tsunami that hit the eastern coast of Japan, which overwhelmed all defenses and caused the failure of the cooling systems in the nuclear site. The Fukushima disaster is considered the worst nuclear accident since Chernobyl in 1986. It highlighted the vulnerabilities these plants have to natural disasters, the importance of backup systems, and added fuel to the energy debates globally. Now, Fukushima is run by TEPCO, Japan's largest utility provider, and Fukushima was its oldest and most important facility. It consisted of 6 Mark I boiling reactors, known for its compact containment structure and continuous cooling methods. It was later criticized for being vulnerable. So how did this all happen? It all started with the Tohoku earthquake. It was recorded at a 9.0 and released 10,000 billion joules of energy. This violent seafloor upheaval displaced huge volumes of water, triggering the tsunami. With waves reaching over 40 feet tall, Japan's coastline was struck. Seawalls were overturned and rendering barriers ineffective. The waters destroyed the backup diesel generators and fried the electrical systems, cutting all power to the reactor cooling, triggering the meltdown. More than 90% of the deaths were caused by drowning in the tsunami. Entire coastal towns were wiped out. Over 18,000 people were killed or reported missing. So what failed, besides the leaders of TEPCO? The tsunami waves flooded the power grid and backup diesel generators, leaving the plant unable to operate safety systems. With the cooling systems disabled, water stopped circulating. Heat started to rise. The superheated fuel interacting with the water produced hydrogen gas. With no ventilation or cooling, it built up until it finally popped. Units 1, 3, and 4 all blew away, destroying their external structures. The wreckage was strewn across the area while the nuclear fuel melted into the earth. The world was watching and already taking action. With pictures and videos released worldwide, fears of another Chernobyl were valid. Now, luckily and unluckily, this was different to the Chernobyl incident. Iodine-131, which caused the most immediate symptoms, only had a half-life of 8 days. It was released largely in the initial explosion. Cesium-137, on the other hand, had a half-life of 30 years and was leaking straight into the land and ocean. Because the ocean was used as a continuous cooling method for the site, it immediately became contaminated with radiation. Japan and the world's emergency response was immediate. Over 150,000 people were displaced, with evacuation centers being overwhelmed with people in the 12-mile radius. Japan declared the first ever Level 7 national nuclear emergency, deploying self-defense forces, police, and firefighters to aid rescue and cooling efforts. The International Atomic Agency sent over valuable monitoring teams and advisors. The U.S. Navy enacted Operation Tomodachi, providing massive humanitarian aid. Over 20 countries provided Japan with relief and assistance. The environmental impacts were untold. Large plumes of radioactive water rushed into the ocean and was spread by currents, reaching even the west coast of the USA. Marine sediment was sprinkled with the material, destroying entire ecosystems. On land, whole mountains of topsoil had to be removed. Some areas are still restricted or require constant monitoring. Farms near Fukushima faced bans like rice, spinach, and beef due to contamination. The Japanese fishing industry suffered heavily and still holds a stigma of a fear. Even years later, it is unknown just how much was affected by this disaster. The people of Japan were hit hard, but luckily no one was diagnosed with immediate acute radiation sickness, like other disasters. Plant workers and volunteers experienced elevated exposure, but it was still below the fatal thresholds. Immediate deaths were caused more so due to disrupted care for elderly or sick people. The long-term cancer risks being watched through current data show a low increase, though monitoring is still ongoing, especially in children. With 150,000 people being affected for many years, mental health is bound to take a toll. Community loss, PTSD, anxiety, and depression are high. Because of this, natural-related deaths exceeded over 2,300 people. The cleanup and decommissioning is likely to take over 40 years due to limitations in technology. The units that had the meltdown melted into the earth, creating corium, which now is being cleaned up by robots or remote-controlled devices, but it's expected to take decades. The water used as a coolant is also contaminated and needs treatment, so they've created the Alps. Over 1.3 million tons of water is collected and processed using the Advanced Liquid Processing System. Through a series of filters, most radioactive material is removed. Following Fukushima, Japan shut down all reactors by 2012. Japan's government implemented strict new safety regulations, required seismic and tsunami-resistant upgrades. For a few years, Japan had zero electricity fueled by nuclear reactors. Nationwide protests erupted for more change. TEPCO and the government trust was at an all-time low. A focus on renewable energy, energy conservation, and decentralization was ignited. Around 2015, only reactors meeting all of Japan's new and far stricter safety standards could restart. With newer technology and upgraded protections, it looked like Japan learned a valuable lesson. Now, if there is fault to be put on anyone, though, it will be 100% on TEPCO. In 1991, the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission warns TEPCO that emergency power could be lost as a result of flooding. No action is taken. On October 1991, one of the two backup generators of Reactor 1 fails due to flooding. An engineer warns his supervisors that a tsunami could seriously damage their generators. TEPCO just installs doors as a response. 2004, the Cabinet Office of the Japanese government warns TEPCO that tsunamis much taller than those planned were indeed possible. TEPCO does not revise safety protocols. 2006, an in-house report recommends that TEPCO takes safety measures against the potential tsunami of the exact same size that would hit 5 years later. The TEPCO leadership does not make the results of this study public, as announcing information about uncertain risks would create anxiety. In 2008, another in-house study identifies an immediate need to protect the facility from flooding due to larger tsunami waves than predicted. The prediction is not taken seriously by TEPCO. 2011, a tsunami wave, the exact height warned about, strikes the Fukushima Daiichi Nuclear Power Plant, causing the second worst radiological disaster in human history. TEPCO joins the long list of companies who value profit over being responsible for any of the power they have. Because of their ineptitude, lives were lost, and the land and sea are now stained with their failures. The world also took note, with Germany deciding to shut off all reactors by 2022. France followed Japan in implementing major safety audits and modernizing reactors. The US conducted immediate safety reviews across all plants. Because of the disaster, new standards were created globally, along with better protections and more robust emergency systems. Fukushima did not help the energy debate, though, with it being seen as an example of the long-term danger nuclear energy has on the environment if something does go wrong. But it cannot be overstated just how drastic its carbon emissions footprint, or lack thereof, is. If anything, this added fuel for nations to look for safer options of renewable energy, or it let them double down on their fossil fuels. Fukushima is forever going to be seen as a pivot point for Japan and the world. There will be decade-long challenges for Japan to overcome. The contamination cleanup will take decades, and long-term monitoring of the environmental and health impacts will be ongoing. Fukushima revealed how design weakness, ignored warnings, and poor risk communication can worsen disasters. It also emphasizes the need for transparent regulatory oversight, robust emergency planning, and modernized safety systems. If anything, though, the best thing to come out of this is it created a culture that prioritizes safety over cost or reputation, and I hope it's one lesson that the world can learn. Thank you for your time. I'm sorry if I went over a little bit. I hope you learned, were inspired, and enjoyed. Goodbye.